Oh
character,
yeah,
and
yeah.
then you'd watch like the YouTube shorts, and it's like I'm
Mm.
like Mike Waltz, who's he again? I didn't watch,
Mm.
the animated series. I'm not sure about his
Yeah,
backstory.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you a few weeks ago you put together a list of who you thought were the hawks and the
Oh
doves
yeah.
of the Trump administration. I imagine Mike Waltz was on that. Where did he?
Mike Waltz was a major hawk
Okay,
on both the Middle East and on Ukraine. I made a list and I put it together into an article. But I have to say, it's not quite that clear cut. And I was trying to compare it as well to the Biden administration, um, uh, and what the Harris administration would have been, because
the Harris,
I
the
wanted to get an idea
harassment.
about whether the Trump administration was more liable to push for diplomatic solutions in those two key theaters of conflict than a likely Harris administration. I have to say that going through every individual on it, I got to the end and I was a bit like, it's a really tight run thing. It depends exactly who Harris would have employed in her administration. It also depends a little bit on the day. How is everyone feeling? But there are some more diplomatic minded people in the Trump administration, including Tulsi Gabbard at the head of intelligence, and Keith Kellogg and Whitkopf, his old property buddy, and they're all a bit more attuned towards diplomacy. So my impression is, I won't bang on about this because can't remember the details quite well enough off the top of my head, but my impression was going through those lists of people who were at the top of the administration. My impression was that the Trump administration was always going to be a little bit more inclined to diplomacy in all the main areas than the Biden administration or any subsequent Harris administration. But it's a fairly tight run thing, particularly when you've got Mike Waltz in there and Hegseth as well. So they are pretty hawkish
But do
figures.
you think that the firing of Mike Waltz, whatever you call it, the barrelization of Waltz, do you think
Well,
that's
he has been barrelized. I think he's just become the U.S. ambassador to the UN. I think, which is
typing up minutes?
yeah, exactly. Yeah, pretty big step downwards. I imagine
So,
that's a
is that a good sign or a bad sign
I,
for the end of the world?
my guess
If
is
you're a
that is
betting man, if you have already bet
if
quite
I
a lot
had
of
to guess,
money that
I'd
the world would end in the middle of May, just out of
I would say
stubbornness because someone on a podcast said that it wouldn't.
I'd say it's a good thing that Waltz has gone. Probably,
Okay.
there was also an element of competency about Waltz as well, which was a kind of, to me, I think is always a bit of a side issue compared to how much of an absolute nightmare ideological lunatic you are. But I don't think he was a very competent figure because he just didn't have any policy experience, and he was a talking head on Fox News, and there are a lot of people, including people at the grey zone like Max Blumenthal, were saying it wasn't just an ideological issue that meant that we didn't like them. It was like, Jesus, okay, wherever you are on the spectrum, you're not gonna like this. So I think he probably did have to um, go to the
So
UN.
how did he rise?
Go and work at the highest level at the UN is
How
the
how did
best
he
thing
get
that could
the
happen.
gig in the first place?
Well, I think that Donald Trump was channel surfing and just liked that he was a hawkish talking head on Fox.
The cut of his jib. Would
Mm.
you, if Donald Trump was podcast surfing, for
Yeah,
example, and he came
when
across,
he's driving that truck like he did
yeah,
at the end of the election. Meep, meep. Hey, what's this shit on
and
the
he and
radio?
he would you work for the